They broke the #1 rule of Camp Bloodmoon. Welcome to Sleepy Echoes Unwind, where every night ends with a story, and not every story ends happily. Get comfortable. We're about to begin. Good evening. To the new arrivals wandering into the dark, welcome. To the returning souls, thank you for finding your way back. I am your guide returning for the night. You can call me Michael. I want to tell you a bit of a backstory of how I ended up here. I was a counselor at Camp Bloodmoon, and I'm the only one left. I need you to listen. I need you to understand what happens when you break a rule that was never meant to be broken. We were told it was for our safety. A lie. Now, I have to tell you the truth, because the official story, the one about 5 experienced counselors getting lost, is an insult to their memory. The truth is so much worse. Our story begins at the place that still haunts my waking moments, Camp Bloodmoon. Section 1. The One Rule. Camp Bloodmoon. The name itself was a warning we ignored. It was nestled in a valley, choked by ancient pines so tall and dense they blotted out the sun by late afternoon. The camp was old, the kind of place that felt steeped in a history you really didn't want to know. The cabins were built from dark, rough logs that were always cool to the touch, and they smelled of damp earth and something else, something vaguely metallic and sweet, like old rust and molasses. The centerpiece was a placid, unnervingly dark lake that never seemed to ripple, even when the wind was up. But the real heart of the place, its most defining feature, was the woods. They surrounded us on all sides, a silent, brooding wall of green and black. And there was a line, a small, babbling creek that snaked around the camp's edge that we were never, ever supposed to cross. Our camp director was a man named Mr. Henderson. He was a lifer, a man whose face was a road map of deep wrinkles and whose eyes held this permanent, weary sadness. On the first day of counselor training, he gathered the 5 of us, me, Liam, Maya, Chloe, and Ben, around a sputtering campfire. "Welcome to Camp Bloodmoon," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. "You'll have a good summer. The kids will keep you busy. But you need to understand something. This place has rules." And he started listing them off, each one stranger than the last. Rule number 3. If you hear the old bell tower chime 3 times fast, drop what you're doing and get to the mess hall. Immediately. No questions. Rule number 7. Never swim in the lake after sunset. Not even a toe. I don't care how hot it is. Rule number 12. Some of the oldest trees on the North Trail have symbols carved into them. Don't touch them. Don't even get close. He went on like this for another 10 minutes. We kept exchanging these nervous, slightly amused glances. It felt like some elaborate prank to spook the new counselors, but then his tone shifted. The weariness in his eyes was replaced by a sharp, piercing fear that was 100% genuine. "And then there is rule number 1, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, forcing us to lean in. "It's the only rule that, if you break it, I can't help you. No one can. You do not cross the creek. You do not enter the woods off the marked trails, especially not after dark. That land isn't ours. We have an agreement. We stay on our side, and what's over there stays on its." He looked at each of us, his gaze lingering, as if he was trying to physically burn the warning into our souls. "We tell the kids it's about getting lost. That's what's in the brochures. But it's a lie. The rule isn't to keep you from getting lost. It's to keep you from being found." Section 2. Whispers in the dark. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Even the crickets seemed to stop chirping. Of course, we didn't really believe him. How could we? We were college kids, products of a world that ran on logic and science. Creatures and ancient agreements were for fantasy novels. Liam broke the tension with a scoff. Found by what? The Blair Witch? Liam was our unofficial leader. Charismatic, athletic, with a reckless confidence that bordered on arrogance. He saw rules as suggestions, authority as a challenge. Chloe, who was perpetually attached to his hip, giggled nervously. She was all about the thrill, living for the story she could tell later. Ben, on the other hand, just shrank back. He was the quiet, sensitive one, an artist who was clearly spooked. And Maya, ever the pragmatist, just watched Mr. Henderson with a calculating look. She was the mom of our group, responsible to a fault. And me, Alex? I was caught in the middle, swinging between Liam's easy skepticism and the chilling sincerity in Mr. Henderson's eyes. The first few weeks were idyllic, almost unnervingly so. The days were filled with the chaotic joy of children, canoeing, archery, arts and crafts. We sang dumb songs and told ghost stories that were just tame enough for a 10-year-old. We were a good team. Liam's energy was infectious. Chloe's enthusiasm was boundless. Maya's quiet competence kept everything running, and Ben's gentle nature made him a favorite with the shy kids. I was the jack of all trades, patching scraped knees and leading nature hikes on the approved trails. But the nights were different. When the kids were asleep and a profound quiet fell over the valley, the camp's cheerful mask would peel away. The woods would press in, the darkness between the trees deeper than any shadow had a right to be. Sometimes, standing by the creek, you'd hear things. The snap of a twig too heavy for a deer. A low, guttural click that sounded like no animal I'd ever heard. Once, I swear I saw movement in the trees across the water. A shape that was too tall and moved with an unnatural, jerky gait. I'd blink, and it was gone. Liam always had an explanation. "It's a bear," he'd say, or your imagination running wild after Henderson's bedtime stories. He mocked the rules relentlessly, making a show of dipping his feet in the lake right after sunset, or tapping on the strange, spiral-carved symbols on the old trees. Nothing ever happened, and with each passing day, his bravado grew and our fear shrank. Mr. Henderson's warning started to feel like the ramblings of an old man who'd spent too much time alone in the woods. But that unease never fully left me. Ben felt it too. I'd often see him staring at the woods across the creek, his sketchbook open, but his pencil still. "What do you think is over there?" he asked me one afternoon, his voice barely a whisper. "Probably nothing," I said, trying to sound as confident as Liam. "Just more trees." Ben shook his head slowly, not taking his eyes off the opposite bank. "No," he said softly. "It's not nothing. It's waiting." Before we go any further, I want to know what you would do. If you were standing at Camp Bloodmoon, knowing there was only one rule, never cross the creek, would you obey it, or would curiosity get the better of you? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious how many of you would actually stay on the safe side. All right, let's see what happened when we didn't. Section 3. The Trespass. The summer bled into its final days. The last bus of kids rumbled down the dirt road, leaving behind a cloud of dust and an unsettling silence. The 5 of us were left to clean, pack, and winterize the camp for 3 days. Without the constant noise of the children, the place felt huge and empty. The silence Ben talked about wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a roar. The woods seemed closer, the dark spaces between the trees more menacing. The air grew heavy, and it was the perfect breeding ground for a very bad idea. It was our last night. We'd finished most of the work and were sitting around a crackling bonfire, the only point of light in a sea of darkness. Mr. Henderson had taken the camp truck into town for supplies, a 2-hour round trip. We were completely alone. Liam, who'd been antsy all day, finally stood up, that familiar, reckless glint in his eye. He cracked a beer and pointed it toward the wall of trees across the creek. "Tonight's the night," he announced. "One final adventure. We're going to cross the creek, hike for an hour, and prove once and for all that old man Henderson is full of it." A cold knot formed in my stomach. The casual way he said it was so at odds with the primal fear Henderson's words had planted in me. Chloe, predictably, was thrilled. "Yes! We can tell everyone we survived a night in the forbidden woods of Camp Bloodmoon." Maya immediately shut it down. "Are you insane, Liam? Absolutely not. It's a stupid, pointless risk." "What risk?" Liam shot back, his voice dripping with condescension. "Getting a little lost? We have phones, compasses. I'm an Eagle Scout, for God's sake. What's going to happen? A monster is going to get us?" He said the word monster with such a theatrical sneer it was a direct challenge. "Henderson was serious," Maya insisted, her arms crossed. "I saw it in his eyes. Something is out there." "He's a crazy old man," Liam's voice rose. "I'm tired of being scared of shadows. We've been here all summer and nothing has happened." He turned to the rest of us. "Ben? Alex? You're not going to let Maya scare you off, are you? Think of the story. We'll be legends." Ben was pale, shaking his head. I don't think we should," he stammered. "It feels wrong." "Oh, come on, Ben," Chloe whined. "Don't be a baby. It'll be fun." Then all eyes were on me, the deciding vote. I looked from Liam's confident, mocking face to Maya's worried frown to Ben's genuine terror. Every instinct in my body screamed no. The memory of Henderson's warning, the strange sounds, the feeling of being watched, it all crashed over me. But I was 20. And at 20, the fear of being called a coward is often stronger than the fear of the unknown. Liam saw me hesitate. "Don't be a wimp, Alex," he said, his tone just sharp enough to be an insult. "It's now or never." And just like that, I caved. "Fine," I heard myself say, the word tasting like ash. "Let's do it." Ben looked betrayed. Maya just sighed. "I can't believe you all. Fine, but I'm not letting you idiots go alone. We stick together and we turn back at the first sign of trouble. Agreed?" Liam pumped his fist. "Agreed. Now let's go break the #1 rule." As we packed, the mood was a bizarre mix of giddy excitement and simmering dread. We grabbed flashlights, a compass, blankets, and a 6-pack of beer. I had this sickening feeling of inevitability, like we were just actors playing out our parts. The creek was barely a stream. Stepping over the line of running water felt huge, like crossing into another world. The moment my boots touched the other side, the air changed. It was instantly colder, the summer humidity replaced by a deep, cellar-like chill. All the familiar sounds of the camp just vanished, swallowed by a profound and unnatural silence. Section 4. The First Price. We pushed our way through the undergrowth. No trails here, just a tangled mess of roots and thorns. 10 minutes in, Liam, leading the way, stopped. "Look," he whispered, shining his light on the trunk of a massive, gnarled oak. Carved into the bark was one of those symbols, a complex spiral with 3 jagged lines cutting through it. But this one was different. It looked fresh. The edges were pale, and a thick, dark sap was weeping from the wounds in the wood. It looked disturbingly like blood. "Creepy," Chloe murmured, her excitement finally fading. Liam just laughed it off. Some other counselors trying to scare the new guys. He reached out and ran his fingers over the carving, a deliberate act of defiance. The moment he touched it, a low hum echoed through the trees. It was almost too low to be heard, but we felt it in our chests. "What was that?" Ben whispered, his eyes wide. "Probably an owl," Liam said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. We kept walking, but the playful mood was gone. The woods grew older, stranger. The trees were twisted into unnatural shapes, their branches like skeletal fingers. Thick cobwebs hung between them, and the ground was soft and spongy, muffling our footsteps. After what felt like an hour, we realized we were lost. Liam pulled out his compass, then his phone. "This is weird," he muttered. "The compass is just spinning, and I have no signal." Panic began to prick at me. "We should go back," Maya said, her voice firm. But when we turned around, the woods looked completely different. The path we thought we'd made was gone. Everything looked the same, an endless, suffocating maze of black trees. That's when we heard it. A definitive snap. Not a twig. It was the sound of a large branch or a bone breaking. It was close. Way too close. We all froze, our flashlights frantically cutting through the darkness. "Who's there?" Liam called out, trying to sound brave. The only answer was a heavy, watchful silence. The drag of something heavy moving through the leaves, just beyond our lights. And a new sound, a soft, rhythmic clicking, like a giant insect, that seemed to come from all directions at once. The rhythmic clicking grew louder, closer. It was an inquisitive alien sound that scraped right at your nerves. Then Ben screamed. He wasn't looking into the woods, but up. We followed his gaze, our lights converging high in the branches above us. For a split second, I saw it. Two pale, luminous orbs, like giant cat's eyes, staring down. They were gone as quickly as they appeared, but the image was burned into my mind. There was a cold, calculating intelligence in that gaze. That's when real panic took over. Ben was on his feet, hyperventilating. "We have to run! We have to run now!" he shrieked. "Run where, Ben?" Maya yelled, grabbing his arm. "We're lost. We need to stick together." But he was beyond reason. He ripped his arm from her grasp and bolted blindly into the darkness. "Ben, no!" I screamed after him. He ran maybe 20 feet before he tripped. We heard him hit the ground with a heavy thud, followed by a choked cry of pure, unadulterated terror. Then came a sound I will never, ever forget. A wet, tearing sound. The sickening crunch of a giant stepping on a bird's nest. And then, silence. A silence more terrifying than any sound could ever be. Ben was just gone. Section 5. The Final Hunt. We were paralyzed, locked in shock. Then the spell broke. Chloe let out a piercing scream that tore through the night. "Run!" Liam roared, his voice raw with terror. And we ran. A mindless, panicked herd, scrambling in the opposite direction. Branches whipped our faces, thorns tore our skin. I could hear Chloe sobbing, Maya shouting my name, Liam cursing. And behind it all, I could hear the thing. It wasn't running. It was moving through the trees above us, keeping pace with an effortless, terrifying speed. The clicking started again, faster this time, excited. We burst into another small clearing, and for a second, we thought we'd lost it. We huddled together, gasping for breath. "Where's Chloe?" Maya cried, her eyes wild. Liam and I spun around. She wasn't with us. "Chloe!" Liam screamed her name. "Chloe!" His answer was a faint, choked gurgle from the direction we'd just come. It was followed by a sharp squeal that was cut off abruptly. Another crunch. And then that terrible, final silence. Liam sank to his knees. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He'd been cocky, arrogant, but he'd loved her. Seeing him broken like that was somehow more terrifying than the creature itself. "Liam, we have to move," Maya said, her voice shaking but firm, trying to hold it together for us. "We have to get out of here." But as she spoke, a new sound began. A low, ragged breathing, like air being forced through a wet sponge. It was coming from the edge of the clearing. We slowly raised our flashlights, and we saw it. It was standing just at the tree line, partially hidden. It was tall, impossibly so, at least 8 or 9 feet, but painfully thin. Its limbs were long and spidery, bent at angles that weren't natural. Its skin was a pale, sickly white, like a mushroom, glowing faintly in our beams. And its head was oblong and featureless from this distance, except for 2 dark hollows where eyes should be. Long, black claws, each at least a foot long, tipped its spindly fingers. One of them was dripping with something dark. It was holding a tattered strip of Chloe's pink jacket. It took a step into the clearing, its movements jerky and unnatural. The clicking sound came from its throat, a series of wet pops. It was studying us, hunting. Liam got to his feet. A suicidal rage had replaced his fear. "You!" he roared, grabbing a thick branch from the ground and charging straight at the creature. "Liam, don't!" Maya and I screamed. It was no contest. The creature's arm lashed out, faster than my eye could follow. The claws connected with Liam's chest. There was no fight, just a sickening thud, and Liam was thrown backward, landing in a heap not 10 feet from us, gone before he hit the ground. Now it was just Maya and me. The creature turned its featureless face towards us. We were frozen, mesmerized by the pure wrongness of it. Then Maya grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Alex, run," she whispered. "Run towards the water, the creek, go." She shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward over a root. As I fell, I saw her pick up her flashlight, switch it to the strobe function, and shine it directly at the creature's head, screaming at the top of her lungs. It was a distraction. For me. The creature recoiled, letting out a high-pitched shriek of pain or annoyance, raising a clawed hand to its face. "Go now, Alex!" Maya screamed. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just ran, tears streaming down my face, my breath coming in painful sobs. Behind me I heard Maya's scream, a sound of pure agony that was brutally cut short. And then I heard the thing shrieking in rage. It was coming for me. I burst through the last line of trees and plunged into the ice-cold water of the creek. I collapsed onto the muddy bank, gasping, and dared to look back. It was there. It stood on the opposite side, not 20 feet away. Its face wasn't featureless. It had a mouth, a lipless slit that stretched too wide, filled with needle-thin teeth. And its eyes were deep, black pits of endless night. It paced back and forth along its side of the creek, its long claws digging furrows in the earth. It wouldn't cross the water. It couldn't. The rule. The boundary. it was real. The creature let out one last, frustrated shriek, a sound that promised it would remember me, before it turned and melted back into the darkness of its woods. Conclusion. I don't remember getting back to my cabin. The next thing I knew, Mr. Henderson was shaking me awake. The sun was rising. For a horrifying, surreal moment, I thought it was all a nightmare. But then I saw my reflection, my face scratched, my clothes torn and caked in mud. And the look on Mr. Henderson's face told me he knew. There was no surprise in his eyes, only a profound, bottomless sorrow, a weary resignation, as if this was a scene he'd played out before. "Alex," he said, his voice heavy, "where are the others?" I broke down. Between sobs, I told him everything. About Liam's dare, crossing the creek, the thing in the trees. I told him about Ben, Chloe, Liam, and Maya. He just listened, his weathered face a mask of grief. He didn't question me. He didn't call me crazy. When I finished, he put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "The rule isn't for you, son," he said, his voice thick with an ancient pain. "It's for it, a boundary, an agreement made a long, long time ago. We stay off its land, and it stays off ours. You broke the pact." The authorities were called. Search parties were organized. They scoured those woods for days with dogs and helicopters. They found nothing. No bodies, no bloodstains, no strip of a pink jacket. It was as if the woods had simply swallowed my friends whole. The official report said that the 5 of us, overconfident and inexperienced, had gotten hopelessly lost. They said my story was a hallucination brought on by trauma and exposure. They said Liam, Chloe, Ben, and Maya were gone, presumed dead. I left Camp Bloodmoon that day and never went back. I tried to move on, to live a normal life, but I can't. I'm haunted by the faces of my friends and by the memory of that creature standing on the other side of the creek. I'm haunted by its final shriek, a promise that it knows who I am and that it's patient. Sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I think I can hear it. A faint, rhythmic clicking carried on the wind. I know the rule wasn't just about a place. It was about a line between our world and theirs. We were young, and we were stupid, and we broke the most important rule of all. They told us the rule was to keep us from getting lost. They lied. It was there to keep us from being found. And now, I'm the only one left who knows what's still out there, in the dark woods of Camp Bloodmoon, waiting. Some lines are not meant to be crossed. Some rules are written in blood for a reason. We broke them, and I am the only one left to carry the warning. Now I pass it to you. Leave the word Blood Moon in the comments, and let's see how many of you are brave enough to keep going. So, I have to ask, have you ever felt something watching you from the woods? Something you couldn't explain? Share your story in the comments below. I'll be reading them. Subscribe for more truths from the edge of our world, and join us in the darkness. But remember, wherever you go, stay on the marked trails. Don't let them find you too.